This is Dragon Age, the Veilguard. The Veilguard. We're here diving into the game that's now available on Xbox Game Pass. Kind of exciting? Not really. Anyways, be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is an interesting entry in the series because it's the one that killed the franchise. I'm not sure we'll ever see another release in Dragon Age, and that is a little bit of a shame. But, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Ooh, I know, crazy, right? So, anyways, let's dive in and talk about the Veilguard. Now, the game, it's not necessarily great by any means, but, because it's available in this particular way, I would say it's worth giving a go to. It's a okay-ish, fine sort of role-playing game. It's sort of set within the universe of, well, Dragon Age, specifically leaning hard upon the events of the Inquisition. More so something that's worthwhile for those specifically that were really into the Inquisition because, well, yeah, it kind of continues those events and leans on those characters and those moments. So a lot of the time, if you're a new player, you're kind of just going, huh, who, what, yeah, and you just kind of go along with it, and that's okay. So I haven't really played this since release outside of playing it on PlayStation 5 Pro, where I will tell you it is a remarkably clearer picture quality, for sure on that platform. By like a mile, but it's playable and stuff like that here fine on the Series X, and they've done some minor improvements in that here or there. So this is the quality mode. This is, well, fidelity mode, I guess you would say. Basically what they've done here is it's a 4K resolution, but it's like internally 1080p, and it achieves this with the magic of FSR. Ooh, I know, amazing, right? 30 FPS is pretty clear to see here. HDR support, and oh, the ray tracing, the magical lighting situation, and there's also spatial sound support, which is kind of cool. Now, for me, I don't really feel that this game is the best at fidelity mode, but you do you, and then some camera visual elements that you can adjust. I'd like to think that down the road this might get some sort of next-gen Xbox update, but I'm kind of thinking that's probably not going to happen. I think they're just going to kind of cut their losses on this one and call it a day. Which is a shame, for sure, yeah, which is definitely a shame, but, that's how she goes sometimes. So performance mode is a little bit different. So for performance, it's again, well, not 4K, it's 1440p, quote unquote, but it's more like 720p dynamic, so it gets blurrier than that. Back to the 360 era, but at least in the 360 era, we actually had native resolutions, right? Which I think were a benefit, in my opinion. Well, I felt that. So anyways, gameplay-wise, it's, kind of your typical Dragon Age game. It's a hack and slash with, some magical abilities here or there, depending on your characters and your class setup and what you aim to unleash upon those around you. See, the shame is like, the art direction and everything like that. It's kind of nice looking, but then it's also very, overly colorful. Anyways, I'll keep focused on what I'm talking about. So yeah, you have a variety of different abilities, and I actually think the combat might be my favorite franchise-wise, just in terms of all the particle effects and the aesthetics of it. It's quite cool looking, and you've got a decent command over your teammates as they use their abilities, and you're trying to fight all these different enemies, and your enemies are varied and they look cool, but a big issue is they are spongy. So you can kind of tell that it was, I'm assuming, a bit of a live service pivot, which gave us this magical experience that we have today. As yeah, some of the end games enemies are just like the spongiest thing I've seen. It is remarkable how spongy some of those enemies are. It's actually kind of crazy. You're frozen, but yet you're not taking any damage. You barely seem injured at all. Yeah, kind of weird. Anyways, yeah, going back to the visuals though. It's a very like overly colorful and happy aesthetic, which I find odd. Like I always think of this series as being a bit more gritty with its aesthetic, and they just kind of went for overly colorful and happy. And we haven't even touched on like the narrative and stuff of this one yet either, but yeah, it's just like the design concept for this one is just kind of perplexing. Like maybe it's just like a modern thing. It's like, oh, we can do fun, colorful things now, and I don't know if it quite matches the what I think of when I think of this series a bit. And I think others will agree with that too. That sentimentality of, you know, that desire of something that's a little bit darker. And like, I guess if they're going for the approach where everything is colorful and vibrant now, I guess, you know, they've been more awakened and learned. They are awoke. No, but they could go with that angle too, where it's like, oh, you know, it's just a new age of whatever, but I don't think that's really the vibe either. And yeah, anyways, story-wise, it's certainly... Wait, could we have just climbed a ladder here? Can we actually get to that? Yeah, I think we can jump over there. So story-wise, it's continuing, like I said, the events of the previous Dragon Age. Equipped. Is this better than what I have? It's just got necrotic damage. Anyways, yeah, so it's just kind of continuing the events of like the previous game, but you're like a new crew that's come together, and you're dealing with some old folks, or old pals that aren't quite what they were previously. They've changed, and you're kind of dealing with that. And the game has a lot of really, I guess the best I could describe it is really misplaced and odd narrative beats that don't really fit into the supposed fantasy era of the series, and it's a bit jarring. I think it's a bit jarring is really kind of the way to go about it. And the game always is recapping. It's really, really weird. So, like, your characters talk about... I can't swim, I forgot. Your characters talk about what is happening, and then they re-talk about what's happening, and then they re-talk about what's happening. And then they talk about what's happened even more. And it's really weird, because you're in like a game where it's just over and over again, just recapping what's going on. And the narrative itself is like paper kind of thin. It's just not a very great story. And it's a bit disappointing because, like, you know, there's an interesting roster of characters here, but like, we're all so happy. There's dark things going on, but like, we're the best of friends, and your choices don't really do anything too much in the game. Like, they kind of alter things, but everyone's kind of cool. And it does that terrible thing where it forces you to play, like, through all of the side stuff of your characters, otherwise everything bad just happens. So it's kind of like another one of those Mass Effect things where it's like you get punished. I think, yeah, it was where you just get punished if you don't do all the weird side stuff that nobody cares about. Yeah, because usually people care and they'll check it out if they like what your gameplay is offering. And then, anyways, yeah, so it's kind of just like a really, really bizarre and genuinely kind of weak narrative with not like a bad selection of characters, but characters where you're just sort of like, everyone is so happy and your characters are kind of like whiny about everything like having to be a certain way, but it's so overly happy-go-lucky that it drives me crazy. There is no grim darkness, We are all like the best of friends, high-fiving and hugging and holding each other. From that perspective, it's a terrible concept because, like, again, it should be like a little grim, a little dark, and it's just like it's depressingly overly happy, where every little thing is like, yay, the best of friends, and it's kind of demoralizing from that perspective because you just sort of, I don't know how to describe it. You just kind of want more out of it when you're playing the game, and it just doesn't give you that. And it's just like the narrative just isn't really engaging, and then as you go on, the enemies kind of get spongier instead of like more interesting and difficult. They take longer to kill, and yeah, it's very much like throwback to like 360 era, where it's just like you move through these linear environments. It's like the facade of like open world stuff. I don't know, it's weird. It's like, it's something that is lost in time as far as being like aged, but it's also like a weird modern step back and narrative delivery. Like the story in this game just is awful, honestly. Like it's just not very good. It's just not very well done. Like whoever was behind it, I don't know if they're just not great at like fantasy storytelling, or if they've just completely lost their touch. But yeah, it's not a great story. And the more I kind of think about it too, because it's been quite a while since, like, you know, I streamed through it all, so you can watch that if you want and get a feel for it. But yeah, the more as time's kind of gone by, I'm just like, this wasn't it for Dragon Age. Well, I mean, this is it for Dragon Age, but this wasn't really what it should have been, and there was a lot of missteps. A lot of very sad missteps. Which I think is really genuinely disappointing, because the series is kind of neat, and it should have been a cool next role-playing thing, and yeah, I don't really know what they were going for on this. But, you know, again, if you just kind of take it as, like, not Dragon Age, and it's just sort of a generic kind of fantasy game with the odd additions of, like, modern context, like we're applying something modern to this old grimdark fantasy universe, then, you know, you can kind of like it from that perspective. Like, you can kind of get your value out of a play of it. Like, it's a neat play, right? Like, it's, again, genuinely, like, it's a fine venture to play through it and see what it is. Just obviously warning you about, like, how things are handled and how the gameplay feels as you go through it. It's not like terrible beyond the belief of, oh, you can't even get through it, but, like, you know, like, it plays fine now. Like, it runs better, and they've touched it up, and, you know, there's things to do, and there's people to interact with, and the romances are so badly done in this, it's depressingly disappointing. Yeah, there's a lot to this game where you're just kind of like, what happened? Yeah, I think we're supposed to...
Sure, here we go.
Can you take her with us? Thanks. Thanks, dear. Yeah, I don't know. I really do think that there could have been something special in continuing this series, and it is something that I kind of anticipated we would always see more entries in. You know, like, I kind of just assumed that Dragon Age would just sort of be a pretty eternal, long-running franchise, and now it's like, I genuinely think it's just gone. Like, maybe someone will take a crack at it decades from now, but who cares then, right? Like, It's a really awkward place to leave this series in. Like, genuinely awkward. I don't know. Like I said, if you're fine for, like, just a generic, colorful fantasy game with some cool combat particle effects and, like, team commands and stuff like that and different enemies to kill, like, it's not a bad time from that perspective. It's just you really got to remove the, you got to remove the Dragon Age of it. Which is an odd thing to say, but that is the best way to tackle this, is just to kind of be like, okay, it's just a generic fantasy game with modern contexts and gameplay, like story stuff, and it's, you know, we're injecting that into a fantasy world, and that's just how things are. And then, like, you'll get possibly some value out of playing through it. Like I said, like, the combat and stuff like this I think is pretty good in this game. Like, it looks really cool, and it's just like the bones of, like, role-playing here are just not there, and, you know, the choices didn't really feel like choices, and you just, like, you're forced to, like, interact with so many, like, kind of awkward things, and it was, you know, it was a choice for sure. I don't know why they went with this direction, but I don't know why they were confident that this was the direction to go with for this series. Seriously, like, there's such a nostalgia, I think, for some people that have gotten older and played these back in the day in, like, the 360 era, and it's just kind of like, oh, how we have fallen. Whoa! Definitely does seem to be running better, though. I will definitely say that. Like, they definitely have done some updates here to make it better, but yeah, coming off of the PlayStation 5 Pro version, this is not as clear as I'm used to, for sure. Yeah, they did a very good job on that version of the game, just getting, like, a nice bump up for fidelity. Anyways, yeah. Kind of cool to dive back into this, I guess. I didn't think I'd ever play it again, but I was like, oh, you know, Game Pass tie-in and stuff. We always got to do that sort of a thing. It just makes sense, especially for such a tentpole, forgettable release of last year. That's the other thing, too. Imagine a Dragon Age game coming out. I guess you would say, like, go way earlier, like, back in the 360 era, and it would just, like, you know, they were, like, kind of award contenders. The previous one, didn't it? I think it won, like, the Game of the Year in the Game Awards, Inquisition, from what I recall. And what happened? How did we get here? Can we go back? Is it too late to apologize? I don't know. But, like, the combat here looks really cool, right? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe someday Dragon Age will return, and they'll learn and just embrace the, you know, traditional sort of dark fantasy of it. Oh, this might not be good for me. I've fallen and I can't get up. Defeat? Oh. I tried so hard. Oh, I don't have any revive things? That's sad. I was on a roll there for a bit. I think the issue is I didn't focus on the enemy enough, right? That's what got me. Sometimes people just don't have the skills to come get you thrills. Well, hopefully someday I can tackle that. I think I was supposed to break that to knock the ladder down so that we could walk back up there quicker. Yeah, that was definitely a bit of a mess up by me, for sure. Yeah. Anyways, I don't think we'll have any more to do with the series, probably. We'll revisit this in a generation or something, but yeah, the Game Pass release of Veilguard. Worth the play?